But welcome to another QB Power Hour, where we'll be talking today about telling your story, marketing for accountants. Michelle is with us.
Yay! Hi, everybody. I am recovered. I am a COVID survivor, and I'm very proud to say that I had a test last Friday to reassure my mom, and it did come back negative. So all is good unless I try to run up the stairs or get too active, and then I start coughing. But I'm very glad to be back and be with you all today. Again, I'm, Michelle Long, CPA, owner of Long for Success, trainer for Intuit for many years, really missing all the training activities that's going on right now. But very glad to have you all joining us. That's enough about me. Dan, how about you?
My name is Dan DeLong, owner of Dan With. We transform businesses through technology. Just finished technically editing QBO for Dummies, the 6th edition, and Chief Content Creator at School of Bookkeeping. So we're joined today by Dave Young. Dave, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dave Young.
A man of many words.
Right. Any of you that were here a year or so ago might remember me, but I did a session for you on marketing to personas, and we talked about Myers-Briggs personality types and things like that. I do marketing and advertising consulting for owner-operated businesses around the U.S., Canada, Australia. I've got 60 other partners that I work with, and we work with owner-operated small and medium-sized businesses. A lot of service businesses. And
you specialize in like short-term or long-term business cycles. What is your ideal?
Were you talking about like for our clients? We prefer the types of businesses that have long product purchase cycles. So a restaurant, not a good thing. We make decisions about food, 3 times a day. A plumber, an electrician, a roofer is a pretty good client. A retailer that sells diamond engagement rings, because hopefully we don't buy those every 6 months.
I would love to. Not an engagement ring, but jewelry.
Yeah, there may be a once or twice in a lifetime purchase, and so it's just because we focus on branding those types of businesses. And in our presentation today, we'll talk about why that is, because those types of purchases that are a long time in between them are typically things that you can't plan for. They just pop up in somebody's life, and they go, all of a sudden they need this, and that's why we like those. We like putting our clients in a position to be remembered when the need finally comes up. How's that?
Awesome.
Well, we're very glad to have you joining us and sharing your expertise with us today. I think this is awesome. Thank you.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
So, Michelle, you want to talk about the upcoming?
Sure. So thank you all for joining us today. As you know, our QB Power Hours are every other Tuesday at noon Eastern. No webinar for the next one because of the week of Thanksgiving. We're going to give you guys some time to spend, hopefully, with your family and friends, and even if that means over Zoom, hopefully you can get together and spend some time with one another and all that. Then we're going to talk about preparing for year end, some things that we can do ahead of year end to make January a little less stressful and a little less taxing. Then again, we won't have one the week of Christmas, and then we'll let you know some of the other ones that we have coming up in January. And then we'll talk about building share of customer with web solutions. So keep in mind down there at the bottom, you can see the links to the PDF of the slides. The recordings are posted out there. The podcast is out there. So however you like to watch these later, you can access those out there. And while we're here talking about administrative stuff, I'd just like to comment too and see if you guys could put your questions in the Q&A panel as opposed to the chat. Because in the Q&A, that's where we can flag them for things that we want to ask Dave verbally and things like that. It helps us kind of keep track of those, whereas in the chat, we can lose the ones that we haven't been asked yet. And I also want to apologize about my webcam. I'm not sure what it's doing, but like if I do something like this, it'll change the lighting and it'll be good for a while. And my lighting will be normal, and then it goes dark again. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure what's going on. Dan, do you want to go ahead and go to the agenda? What we're going to be talking about with Dave today is he's going to talk about a discussion of character and story in marketing. And I think this is such a timely topic, Dave. I'm so glad we've got you here right now because we have a conference that's actually going on right now called Scaling New Heights. I know a lot of us wish we could be there. Some of us are attending remotely, and there are some people down there, but it's all about RISE of the advisor. And RISE is an acronym, and the S in RISE stands for Storyfy. And so Joe, starting on day one on Sunday and stuff, they've been talking about your story. And so I think this is just perfect to bring Dave in to help bring this to you all, talking about your story and how important that is with your business. So I just think it's perfect timing. So Dave, again, thank you for spending your time and expertise with us today.
It's my pleasure.
So I'm going to go ahead and launch the first poll, which is, what have you found to be the most effective form of advertising? It's a multi-select checkbox, so you can just answer as many as what you found to be your most effective form of advertising. And then as Dave and I were preparing for this, we were talking about, the ProAdvisor listing is one of those things. And Dave's actually going to put me under the knife.
Critique your profile.
Critique my listing.
Very good. It is real important on that because, I've done that with some other people, critique their ProAdvisor profile and gave them some tips to improve it. And I've had people follow up with me a couple of weeks or a month later that said, Michelle, I made those changes and I've already gotten 2 leads from it, whereas before they weren't getting any calls, because your profile determines whether people are going to click on you or click on someone else. And so that's really important. So I'm glad that we're going to get to share that with you all today.
Well, and there's nothing more boring than a profile that starts with, for all your bookkeeping needs.
Right. We do bookkeeping, payroll, and taxes. Yeah, we know you're on an accountant's referral website,
You and the other 75 others that I scrolled past.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to stop sharing so that Dave, you can begin your share while we're still waiting for some folks to answer. Does look like I'm going to go ahead and share. It is shared, and I'm going to share the results. So yeah, it looks like 48% the ProAdvisor listing is the most effective form, and it's great because it's free. It's a free form of advertising, and where it positions, and Dave is actually going to talk about a little bit about why that is actually probably the most effective form for us.
Well, and networking organizations down at the bottom, that's actually even a little higher.
Oh, I didn't have the window big enough. So yeah.
And so both of those are story based. Your ProAdvisor listing, you've got a place to tell your story in there in that profile section, and it looks like from ones that I've looked at, it can be about as long as you want it to be. A lot of them are pretty short, but and then networking organizations. The whole idea there is to build a network of people that can tell your story for you, right? So,
yep. And that's how I know Dave.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
We are in the same networking organization, so I'm glad that he was able to carve some time out for us today. So go ahead and
my pleasure.
Take it away, Dave.
I'm on. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I don't. Do I call you QuickBookers or QBers or PowerBookers? What? I don't know how to address you.
Accounting pros. Accounting pros.
Oh, I like that.
Because that kind of covers accountants and bookkeepers and ProAdvisors, and because we're not all the same, we're all quite different.
Well, when Dan asked me back this year, I was thrilled, and I had a great time with you guys a year ago. And then when he said it was going to be the week after the election, I hesitated. I didn't know. I mean, would people show up? Isn't the world supposed to end?
Apparently not.
I'm having some trouble with my mouse. Sorry about that. Let's get that started. I need to get, there we go. What a great start. So I figured the world was going to be ending. I was worried about toilet paper. Still happy to see that I can't get that little bar to not be there.
Oh, I'll
just ignore it.
Just let it there.
Okay. So I'm really happy to see that although there are still unanswered questions, the world is still turning. Businesses are still doing business. Bookkeepers and accountants still keeping track of everything we do so that taxes and reports can be filed in an orderly fashion, because that's what we want. And no matter who's in control in Washington, we business owners will continue to rely on accountants and bookkeepers to keep things orderly, at least keep our books orderly for legal reasons. Now, of course, for you, the reason for keeping things orderly is sometimes not for legal reasons, because that's an external reason. I would bet that for most of you, the reason for keeping things orderly is that from your point of view, the world must have order. This is work that must be done, whether anyone sees it or not. Many of you probably keep your sock drawer organized for the same reason. Order must be maintained, and that's an internal reason. Your own internal operating system demands it. And without bookkeepers and accountants and plumbers and carpenters and all kinds of system-oriented people, we would be living in chaos. But your clients might not appreciate that sense of order. Some of them are trying to build a business by keeping plates spinning and jumping from one opportunity to the next, leaving crumpled receipts and hand-scrawled notes in their wake, and expecting that order is too expensive maybe for right now. And marketing your services to them means you've got to figure out how to bridge the gap between your worlds. Just as their chaos is bewildering to you, your desire for order is a mystery to them until they wake up and find out that they need you. So don't worry about this video too much. It's not going to be a science fiction themed presentation, but later on I'm going to tell you that story is metaphor. And I think this movie clip is a perfect metaphor for a bookkeeper, represented by the stable and unmoving obelisk and her prospective clients. Well, it's obvious who the clients are. Am I right? Now,
if the clients are acting like that, they'd probably be former clients.
Well, those may be the clients that just don't know they need a bookkeeper yet, right?
That's true.
They're just still flinging stuff against the wall to see what sticks.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally, yeah. So before I launch into the kind of advice to give you about using character and story to market your services, I'd like to share just a couple of pieces of advice about what is not likely to work when marketing a bookkeeping business. First is a unique selling proposition. Now, a USP. It might sound crazy because nearly every marketing guru on the planet talks about finding that special nugget about your business that sets you apart and shows that you're different from all the other bookkeepers. Well, the problem is nobody wants a bookkeeper who marches to the beat of a different drummer. Doing the books isn't designed to be a creative endeavor. I also don't want an electrician or a plumber who has methods and philosophies that go against established safety codes. Can we agree on that? We want our bookkeeper to be responsive to emails and quick to answer the phone when we call. We want them to be available. We want them to be competent. Are you ProAdvisor certified? We want them to be honest and professional and pleasant. Any unique quality you might attempt to claim had better be relevant to these 4 items. And none of them really should be unique. I mean, you'd be a fool to claim that you're the only honest bookkeeper in town. So on your website, you should show proof of these 4 things. Tell me your policy when it comes to communication. Show me how to schedule time with you. Show your certifications and your approach to continuing education. And then tell stories that prove your honesty, your professionalism, and your pleasantness. And we'll talk more about those stories later. Here's my other suggestion for something that just won't work very well, and that's list marketing. So loads of marketers, again, will also tell you to either buy or build a list that you can send marketing emails to in the hopes that you can wear them down and they will eventually succumb to how glorious it will be to have you doing their books. Now, I'm not saying to ditch your client newsletter, and if you've built up a list, by all means, if you've figured out how to convert a good percentage of them into paying customers, I'd like to see how you're doing it. But that being said, an exception to this advice is using email as a means of communicating to people who are already your clients. Timely reminders about deadlines and holidays and organizing, those things are appreciated. by business owners from their vendors, but those are already clients. So here's the problem. Bookkeeping is a grudge purchase. Nobody wants a bookkeeper. Nobody wants a CPA. And whenever someone in a movie or on TV says, I want a lawyer, what they really mean is I need a lawyer. It's a grudge transaction. It's externally motivated. From a customer's perspective, that means it's external to their inner desires and motivations. It's not a want, it's a need. It forces them to need what you sell. And to contrast that, internally motivated purchases and services, those are things that make people desire what you sell. Think about the kinds of purchases that we show off to each other: our cars, outfits, iPhones, jewelry. Those are all internally motivated purchases. They're wants. And if you can't imagine one of your clients showing off her shiny, accurate QuickBooks files, it's an externally motivated purchase.
You just really just blew mine. It's like, come on. I mean, look at that profit and loss.
Right. Now, you guys might enjoy that, right? I mean, the sharing of things. It's like, I don't know. I doubt that's what you do because of confidentiality. So the thing is that need for external purchases, it requires a trigger. Think of it this way. I apologize for this reference or this metaphor. I don't need a bathroom until I need a bathroom. Right?
Right.
For a business owner, that trigger will likely be an event or a breakdown that requires the capable services of an accountant. For example, getting the books caught up for taxes. I just triggered myself.
How about getting the word taxes? That's a trigger.
How about getting organized for a bank loan? I wonder how many small businesses didn't even apply for pandemic relief because they just didn't have current books. Right? Gosh, we got to talk to a banker. I'm not prepared for that. I'm worried about getting sick. Filing timely government reports on time. Sales taxes. There are industries that have reports that are financial in nature that are due at different times. And those are triggers for someone that's running one of those businesses. How about sharing financial information with stakeholders? A family business is a good example of this, and I know this from experience. So when some of the owners of a family business are passive, for example, when a business is inherited and one sibling is running it, but multiple siblings have a financial stake, sometimes you need a bookkeeper to get everybody to kind of calm down and get on the same page. How about just simply being overwhelmed with keeping up? It's a great problem for a business owner to have, but the stress of getting behind just kind of builds and builds.
And to your point there, how do you use a list to find those triggers?
Well, that's exactly it. The problem is there is no list, Dan, of people who will be facing one of these external triggers. We do a lot of work with home service companies, as I mentioned, and they face the same problem. I mean, can you tell me where I can buy a list of homeowners that need a new roof in the next 6 months? I don't think you can. Where can I find out which homeowners will have clogged drains this month? And the other issue is there's not anything you can do to make the trigger happen, right? Until the trigger happens, you can't get people to desire what you sell. And so that's the bad news. But the good news is when they do experience the triggering event, you won't have to convince them to buy. They're now highly motivated to buy from someone. You just have to convince them to buy from you. So here's some more good news before we get into character and story. Just a short list of a few things now that you can stop doing. You can stop worrying about a USP. Just forget about it. For this type of business, that's just not, unless you think you really are different from all the other accounting firms and bookkeeping services, stop worrying about this. Stop trying to grow a list and marketing to it, beating yourself on the head about what kind of emails you're going to send out to get people to need a bookkeeper. And then inside your business, you can stop aiming operational improvements at anything that isn't something your customers care about. So operational improvements in communications are great. Operational improvements in how you move data back and forth, more certifications, those kinds of things are things that you should be focused on. And then here's a list of things that you can start doing. Again, focus your operational improvements on the things that matter to your customers. Managing client expectations about communication. Spell that out on your website. Maintain your training and certifications. Mention it on your About page. If you have a blog, write stories that demonstrate your honesty, your professionalism, how you enjoy interactions with your clients. Whatever advertising you do, and this includes things like referral networks, aim your advertising at communicating those 4 factors, and then use story-based ads or messages for effective communication, and study how to brand an unsexy, externally triggered business. And we're getting a good start on that today. So I'll get started now with what you asked me to.
I always thought accounting and bookkeeping was sexy. What are you saying, unsexy?
It is to people. If you're in this business, of course it is, right? You love it.
Oh, I know. I'm just teasing you.
And that's the. I mean, we have this same conversation with my plumbing clients and my HVAC guys, right? Not a lot of people think that that's a sexy business, and it's not something that we typically go shouting about when you should see the new air conditioner that I have up on my roof. Let's go up there and have a look at it. Right? It's just not the kind of business that we share.
And one of the things that I always tell people is, if you're like Dan goes to the B&I events, or if you're at a chamber luncheon, or you're somewhere and you meet someone, and if they're like, oh, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm an accountant, or I'm a bookkeeper, or I'm a tax professional. That is like a discussion ender. Oh my gosh, you must be boring. I'm going to go talk to some other people, So that's why character and story is so important, learning more to talk about this, because you're right. It is not a sexy business or an exciting one or something. So I think this is great.
I don't necessarily mean that in a like negative way. I mean, sexy is a metaphor as well. It's a business that is it's the type of business that we don't get excited about sharing and telling other people about until we recognize some kind of a need. So sexy is the metaphor that everybody kind of gets when I say that. So it was over a year ago that I talked to you guys about marketing to personas, and I took a little screenshot of that video, and you can see how long it's been since I've had
You've been quarantined for quite a while.
I have, right? Yeah. There's a ponytail back here too. I don't know if you can see that. So what we talked about a year ago was creating prototype clients, marketing to personas. That's you create these prototype clients who behave through known personality traits, and then you use them to determine what kinds of things to say in your marketing message to align it with your customers' interests. And today we are looking at it through the other end of the telescope. We want to figure out what the persona or character of your practice would look like to someone who has no idea about who you are or what it would be like to work with you. Now, for our advertising clients, this can be a fairly complicated process, but once you figure out the character, the stories just sort of write themselves. Now, there won't be a quiz on this.
Thank goodness.
This is a mind map of some of the things we address when we meet with a client during a 2-day uncovery session. And the items that I circled up at the top relate to how we will portray them in our messaging. So that's whether it's a website or the radio or a billboard, even how they answer the phone. Once you develop them as a character, it becomes really easy to write for them. Now, and we're not going to get this complicated in how we make up a character today. So that's kind of the exciting part of this.
Yay.
Sorry, Dan?
Yay.
Yay.
Not too far in the weeds in our hour.
Yeah. Another popular brand character technique would be to create a made-up character to represent your brand. And we're all familiar with things like this, the Maytag guy and Tony the Tiger and the Old Spice guy. And then my favorite, I threw this in just because this is a made-up brand character that gets meme-ified all the time. So it was a pretty good a pretty good thing for Dos Equis to do, and a little bit of an accounting, bookkeeping kind of meme there. So this kind of branding has had loads of success, but it's also not the direction that we're headed. These kinds of strategies take a pretty big budget and some really serious creative spending. So we're going to talk about a shortcut on how to create a character. And I like this shortcut, and I think it works pretty well. It involves a sort of merger between a fictional character and your very favorite real-life character of all time. That's you. Now, I'm going to take you out of your comfort zone. You're accountants and bookkeepers. Most of you probably haven't done any play acting since you had the role of Jacob Marley or Atticus Finch in your high school play. So buckle in. Maybe drink a glass of wine. It's afternoon on the East Coast.
5:30 somewhere.
If it's not afternoon yet, then you have my permission to call it purple coffee. Trust me, you can do this. Okay, it does require a bit of imagination, though. So the first step is to name a fictional character that you relate to, that you like a lot. Right? I watch this show because of that character, because I really relate to them. So ideally, this is somebody that maybe you can sometimes see yourself being when you watch their show or their movie. And then to merge that character to yourself, you simply allow yourself to act, to write, to communicate, even to create policies and practices in the operations of your business with the lens of how would I do this if I were that fictional character. Now, this is a really important part, okay? You will never, ever show explicitly that you're doing this. You're going to channel the character as if they were riding along on your shoulder and whispering in your ear. And what this technique allows you to do is to have confidence in your actions and behavior and your communication by asking yourself, how would my hero handle this? So again, and I'm going to say this a couple more times, we're not ever going to say that's who I am. That's something that you keep inside. So I'm going to use an example that might be a little bit over the top. A lost wallet lies on a Manhattan street stuffed with cash. A white middle-income male New Yorker between 30 and 44 picks it up. Will he look for the rightful owner or pocket the cash? Who knows? Dan, do you know? What's this guy going to do?
No.
All right. What if it's George Costanza, the white middle-income male New Yorker between 30 and 44 from Seinfeld? What if he picks it up? Everybody knows exactly what he'll do. So if you feel like you're the George Costanza of accounting, you'd know exactly the kinds of stories you could write. You know the kind of policies you'd put in place. You know how to land... Let me put this a different way. You would know how low you'd stoop to land a client. You'd know what kind of clients you'd be willing to take on. And by the way, I hope you're not the George Costanza of accounting, because that sounds a bit too much like a unique selling proposition, and we already agreed not to go there. But that being said...
And you'd be talking in third person all the time.
What's that? Yeah.
And
But I promise you, there are businesses who would respond well to this because they would probably recognize themselves in your behavior. So I took the liberty, and we're going to go through several of these characters, and I took the liberty of changing the opening lines of Dan's ProAdvisor bio for each of the characters we're going to be looking at. And on that ProAdvisor website, when you scroll down the list of all the accountants in your zip code, in that bio line, man, you only get a snippet. There's only a couple lines that you can actually see. So how do you pick? Right? It seems like the people with the most reviews are at the top, and then everybody else just is down below. But you start looking at it, and it's that's the same, that's the same. So if you were George Costanza, what would you write? The IRS was angry that day, my friend. One phone call. That's all they gave my client. Right? I mean, we can hear George saying that. Right? Now, obviously, Dan is not the George Costanza of accounting. I like to think of him more as the Rick Astley of accounting. I think it's probably the hair.
You love my hair.
So let's pick someone with a few more characteristics that we might see as maybe more positive. My wife watches a lot of Law and Order, right? So Olivia Benson. How would Olivia Benson handle phone calls, emails? Well, she'd probably be pretty prompt. She'd let people have an understanding of how communication would work. What would her opening line look like? Some things you can put them behind you, but they do change you. Let's get caught up. And that, you can go a lot of places with this, but you can try to get those values that Olivia has in those first couple of lines, and it ends up being something that's different than all the other profiles that are listed there. Here's another one, Alicia Florrick from The Good Wife. So can you picture a story in her About Us page that talks about her loyalty, her patience, taking responsibility? The first couple of lines that I came up with for her: friends may come and go, but my clients stick around. We're loyal that way. And that's going to speak to the heart of people who really value loyalty as one of their core values.
All these are so good.
What's that?
all these are so good.
Isn't this fun?
They're so much better than we provide bookkeeping, payroll, and taxes.
For all your bookkeeping needs.
Yeah.
How about this guy, right? Any Game of Thrones lovers out there?
Yeah, somebody already said, I'm not sure how Daenerys Targaryen would be as an accountant. So somebody's already picked their character.
Yeah. So this guy's solitary. He's a good counselor. He follows power. The way he manages expectations might be to tell clients he'll let them know when it's time to send information, and he'll schedule time with them, not the other way around. Not to communicate that the client's not the boss, but that his realm and his work on the client's behalf are not a cooperative effort. When he needs someone, you can expect a raven. His bio might start with, I can hear the numbers whispering. True power comes when you master the numbers.
The little birds.
The little birds.
All of these, though, make me want to click on them to read more. Yeah. And that's right? The whole point. Yeah, I love it.
That's the purpose of those two lines, right? That's it's an age-old advertising commandment, right? The purpose of the headline is to get you to read the next paragraph, and the purpose of the paragraph is to get you to read the next one. And so if you can get somebody to click on your profile, and then you're actually speaking their language, because these are the words that they liked, it can be a very powerful way to get people to click in. And it's not clickbaity, right? It's not 16 amazing tricks. It's not clickbait at all.
You'll never guess what number 7 is.
That's right. So let's do another one. Severus Snape. He seems like a villain, but he's actually Harry's loyal defender, and he's often misunderstood, right? And maybe you're misunderstood. You can tell a story about that on your website or in your About Us page. It could be something like, sometimes people feel I'm a bit standoffish. That's because I'm usually thinking about their books and making sure everything is okay. I see the clues that perhaps the client's business is having challenges in some areas. This can lead to some good conversations and sometimes head off disaster. So Snape's profile: I make it my job to protect you. You'll find safety in tidy books and sleep all the better for it. Remember, you'd never publicly reveal that you're Snape, right? I mean, that's nuts. Nobody would understand what in the world you're up to. Your personal brand would feel schizophrenic. It would feel unfocused. It'd be a little weird for people. Instead, you simply keep it on the inside, and you use your character's traits and personality to give you the strength to communicate in their style. You'll still be you, but the you that you reveal to the world will have an extra layer of intrigue and depth because you're drawing on a well-developed character that so many of us already know. Let's look at one more. Claire Fraser. She had another name. I forget what it was. But powerful character, right? And here's the really cool part of using a fictional character, especially one that's well developed over a series. I prefer the series characters over movie characters because you have hours and hours and hours of them instead of just maybe 90 minutes. So the really cool part about using a fictional character, if you remember when we talked about the marketing personas, well, people have written about most of these characters and their personalities in a lot of depth. And if you go on Google and you search for Claire Randall personality type, you're going to find a whole bunch of stories where people have said, here's why I think she's an INFJ or ISFJ. And they don't all agree on it, but they all talk about her character. And so as you choose one, you can do this sort of research to find all this depth of how that character is going to respond to different things. And it gives you the kind of clues that you need for writing these types of stories. And it also means you can do some good research before you settle in on a character that isn't a great fit for you, right? You might think of one, and then as you start looking, you go, well, it doesn't really quite match me. And then the other part about, you can also change into another character down the road with very little consequence, because the first rule of Character Club is we don't talk about Character Club, right? So if you decide that you want to switch from Alicia Florrick to Claire Fraser, you can do that, and nobody's going to know. So what would Claire's bio line be? Now this, I sort of broke my rule, but nobody knows that Claire Fraser's sitting on my shoulder, right? Good bookkeepers are time travelers. How far back must we go to get you caught up? Now, the mention of time travel, as long as I don't have a picture of a time traveler in my bio, nobody knows that that's what I'm channeling. I'm still keeping that information inside.
Could be Doctor Who.
Now, here's another really cool tip for writing these bios and channeling your inner fictional character. When you type George Costanza quotes into Google, the stuff practically writes itself. That's exactly what I did for each of these characters. I just aimed some real dialogue that I found by typing in Claire Fraser quotes, and it's just a really great shortcut for figuring out what these characters would do and say. I just aimed some of that real dialogue at an accounting topic. Now, highly paid professional writers did all the heavy lifting of developing these characters and putting the words in their mouths. And the people that loved the words that came out of their mouths wrote stories about it and gathered up all their quotes, and they're just ready for you to find on Google. I'm excited for you to do this. So now you're doing the marketing version of cosplay. What are you going to say? How and where will you say it? Your newly created character is now ready to start telling stories. Now, I said at the beginning, every story is a metaphor. Stories communicate the fundamental relationships between ideas, between people, and between products and customers. So you'll find your story, and you all have stories. We'll talk in just a second about the types of stories, but find a story, visualize it, and try to breathe some life into it with sounds, tastes, scents, and colors. Map it. You can map a story by just saying what's the beginning of the story? How does it end? I like to start with the end. How does it resolve? And then where's the climax? What is the body of the story leading up to that? And again, stimulate senses. So, and keep it brief and stimulate their senses. What kinds of stories should you tell? Now, we love our clients that have good origin stories. Sometimes they're not so great, but I got into this business because my dad was in it, and that's what I did. Right? That's not always the most interesting one, but there are some origin stories where that is a pretty powerful one. I mean, I can give you an example of one here in the Tucson and Phoenix area, and that's the Gettle air conditioning ad that my partner Roy wrote. That one does that whole campaign, and the origin story is when I was 10 years old, I held the flashlight for my dad as he worked on air conditioners. So you can, if you have a really cool way you got into this business, that's a great story. Tell a story about the time you solved a problem for your client. State a belief and tell a story that shows why you believe what you do. And Dan, I have a 20-minute video on this topic that talks about how to build this specific type of story. And I'd be happy to share that out if you want, or if anybody wants to email me, ask me for that link. I'm happy to send that.
We'll put it on your landing page, in the blog article of this episode. So
okay, that'd be great. Tell helpful tales with a lesson at the end. I mean, if you keep a blog, tell me about the time you've helped a client. You don't have to share who the client is. That's confidential, but you can tell the story about how we got this guy caught up. He was 3 years behind in his books, and it was a mess. Here's what we did, and here's how long it took. When you're telling a story, we want to know who the people are in the story. We want to know what is the POOK, and I don't, I don't even like acronyms, but the problem, the obstacle.
The C at the end there.
It's a C.
Gotcha.
A lot of people like to fit them to some kind of a known word. Not me. How does the story end? I would encourage you to start studying storytelling. You're already good at finding the stories in the numbers, right? I've heard many accountants talk about, the numbers tell a story, right? I'm going to play an ad that we wrote for one of our clients in Corpus Christi. They're not a bookkeeper or accountant. The ad is in the client's voice. And if I had to describe his character, it would be Andy Griffith's fishing buddy, right? The kind of guy that Andy Griffith would go just spend the day with, right? This guy is the salt of the earth, and this is one of his origin stories. It's a true story, and it just came out of him one day when we were talking during that Uncovery meeting, and it meets all of these criteria, all three of these.
License number M15795.
Mrs. Smith called me her plumber. In my off hours from the hospital, that's what I was. One day she slid a check across the table and said, "David, start your own business." So I bought a truck and started Royal Plumbing. I paid her back and then bought bigger trucks and hired more plumbers to carry more parts and save customers time. I'm David Havelka. Every day we work hard. We want to be your plumber.
Call or go to royalplbg.com.
Tell us Mrs. Smith sent you.
All right. Here's another one. Same client.
License number M15795.
When Lozano laughed and cuffed me on the back of my head, he got my attention. I'm David Havelka with Royal Plumbing. When I was a plumber's apprentice, Lozano showed me the right way to dig, saving my back and muscles. We're looking for an apprentice who knows how to work, likes to learn, and has the drive to become a licensed plumber. We won't cuff you on the cabeza, but if we have your attention, apply with us.
RoyalPLBG.com.
Now, those are 30 seconds. They're not long stories, and they would work equally well as a blog post or a Facebook update or even in a QuickBooks ProAdvisor profile page. I'm going to play one more for you.
License number M15795.
In high school, we had an assignment to name a business. 12 years later, I started Royal Plumbing. I'm David Havelka. Royal Plumbing isn't who we are, it's how we treat you. We only employ technicians who are licensed, know codes, are background tested, and drug-free. We guarantee our work for 2 years, 5 years when we use our fixtures. We want to be your plumber.
RoyalPLBG.com.
The name says it. We take the hassle out of living in a castle.
Now, again, they're not long stories, but they are complete stories, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to tell a story. Now, this is something that you need if a vamp. A vamp is a ringmaster. In every circus, it's the self-promoter of someone or something other than himself. A vamp can work on stage or off stage, under the lights, behind the curtain, but crazy success usually doesn't happen without a vamp of some kind. Colonel Parker vamped Elvis. Don King vamped Muhammad Ali from the spotlight. John the Baptist vamped Jesus from the wilderness. Traditional talk shows, never about the host. The hosts are the vamps. They're shining a spotlight on their guests. And so vamps are ad writers, storytellers on behalf of someone else. There are talented people living anonymous lives in every city, town, and village wishing they could only be discovered. But discovery isn't what's needed. What's missing is a vamp, an advance man, a promoter, somebody who's willing to work behind the scenes, fully dedicated to your success. The job of the vamp is to tell stories we could never tell about ourselves. And we're going to circle back around to the idea of networking groups here in just a minute. But I want to show you an example of a fictional vamp doing an amazing job of vamping his client. This is from the 2001 movie A Knight's Tale.
My lords, my ladies, and everybody else here not sitting on a cushion. Today, you find yourselves equals. For you are all equally blessed. For I have the pride, the privilege, nay, the pleasure of introducing to you a knight sired by knights, a knight who can trace his lineage back beyond Charlemagne. I first met him atop a mountain near Jerusalem, praying to God, asking his forgiveness for the Saracen blood spilt by his sword. Next, he amazed me still further in Italy when he saved a fatherless beauty from the would-be ravishings of her dreadful Turkish uncle. In Greece, he spent a year in silence just to better understand the sound of a whisper. And so, without further gilding the lily, and with no more ado, I give to you the seeker of serenity, the protector of Italian virginity, the enforcer of our Lord God, the one, the only, Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein!
This is sort of the introduction that I wanted to
My lord!
Here's another scene. Stories don't always have to be over the top. They can be a little shorter.
Good people! I missed my introduction! But please, I pray you, hear it now. For I would lay rest the grace in my tongue and speak plain. Days like these are far too rare to cheapen with heavy-handed words. And so, I'm afraid without any ado whatsoever, excuse me, my lord, here he is, one of your own, born a stone's throw from this very stadium, and here before you now, the son of John Thatcher, Sir Thatcher!
Who doesn't want an intro like that?
Yeah.
One more. You got to be careful, though, that you don't get so creative that you become a little obscure.
Yes! Behold, my Lord Ulrich, the rock, the hard place. Like a wind from Geldland he sweeps by, blown far from his homeland in search of glory and honor. We walk in the garden of his turbulence. Yeah!
Got to have a wingman, right?
So there for the tip in.
The job of the vamp is to tell the stories we could never tell about ourselves. And you can hire a vamp. When it comes down to it, that's my job. That's what I do for my clients. I help define their characters. I discover their stories, and I help them put them in front of potential customers. But there's always a shortcut. Join a networking group. You'll get a chance every week to practice telling stories and teaching your stories to your potential vamps. Dan and I are in the same BNI chapter, like you mentioned. And even though BNI doesn't use the word vamp, the goal of every member of that networking group is to turn the rest of us into their vamp. And what you can do with what I've shared today is to just give them better stories to tell. Because that's what we want. When we give a referral to somebody, it's so helpful to be able to say, let me tell you about the time Dan saved the day. It was amazing.
And Dave, I think this is great because for us, we do need those referrals. And so talking to, bankers, talking to attorneys, talking to real estate agents or whoever can be a source of referrals for us. That's our vamp. Those are the people that if we can share our stories and share so that they know what type of client is going to be the right client for us and everything. So I think if we think of vamps as our referral sources and our networking referrals, I think this is a great example for people. I love it.
Thanks. And that's really it. We didn't get deep into the woods in storytelling, but there's loads of material. I would just suggest that you study it.
Well, and Dave, I just want to share because somebody had put in the chat that they don't think stories are that important, that people don't care. And I said I respectfully disagree because over the years, I present and train, to other accountants and bookkeepers. And over the years, I didn't realize what I was doing, but I had developed lots of stories from my experiences working with clients to share with people to, illustrate what not to do or a success or whatever to teach a lesson, if you will, or share something like you said that I had accomplished with a client, or I had started using stories without realizing it. And now I've learned more about stories. And I read somewhere that people will remember the story 22 times more and they will remember the lesson or the whatever it is. So especially if you're using your vamp or your referral network, for them to remember, like you just said, oh, I remember when Dan did this for a client or whatever. It's way more impactful than just call Dan. He's a great guy, And so I love this about the stories, and I have been using them for quite a while, and they really do work well.
There's a mortgage broker in our BNI group that gave his talk. The way BNI works is everybody gets to talk for 45 seconds in our group every week. But one person gets to talk for 10 minutes, and they get to tell about their business so that you can help. It helps you create referrals for them. Well, this guy's a mortgage guy, and he could have spent 10 minutes talking about the ins and outs of mortgages, right? Oh, here's what a variable rate. Here's what a balloon payment is. No, he told us 3 stories. He told us about a guy who didn't think he could get a mortgage because it was everybody else was advising him to declare bankruptcy. He told another story about a guy who had gotten divorced and didn't think he would ever be able to own another house, and how he helped him get a house. And I forget what the third one, but the point was that there were 3 amazingly well-told stories, not a single slide, and that's the presentation that I remember from the past 6 months. It's not somebody talking about, what the inside of a water heater looks like if you don't clean it out. So I think they're incredibly powerful.
And, I think that's great. We were joking earlier about have a drink or something. And I think this is a great opportunity for us as accountants who sometimes we're not as creative, and I can't think of a story, Dave. I don't know how to do this. I'm an accountant. I don't have that side of my brain. Sit back, have a few drinks, especially if you're with friends, have a Zoom with a few friends or whatever, but sit and have a drink and think back of the stories. When someone would ask you, what's one of your worst client experiences? What's the biggest inventory problem you ever solved? What about payroll problem that you've solved? Or think about the the experiences and things that you've done over the years with your clients, especially when it's been a big mess or you had a big problem or whatever, and what you did for the client and stuff. That's your stories. That's how you can pull out your story. And like Dave said, how'd you get started? I've got a great story about this client that I represented before the IRS, and that's part of why I don't do taxes anymore. So going through your history and your experiences, and if you have a drink or two, I think it flows better and you start thinking about it. Of course, you're going to do this in private, not in front of clients or anything like that, but it helps you to work on your character and your stories, I think.
You think about the stories we tell about family vacations even, right?
Yes.
If you ask me about a family vacation, I'm not going to tell you about the time we planned it and everything went perfect according to plan. I'm going to tell you about the time we were driving across from Las Vegas to LA and the air conditioner in the van broke. Right. And that's the story. It's how we overcame adversity.
Yep.
What happened?
Yeah. When something goes wrong, those are the stories on our last cruise that we took with our family, we were laughing at the time. And now I can't remember what it was, but whatever had happened, we're like, boy, we're going to have great stories to tell about this one, because those make good stories. So
absolutely.
There's a question here about somebody took the Myers-Briggs personality test. So your suggestion, Dave, is to use that to build your character storyline, or how does that pull into it?
Here's what I do. If you just took the Myers-Briggs personality test, you can Google whatever fictional character you're thinking about using and see if they align with yours. That will be a really good one to use. When we talked last time, and Dan, maybe you can link to that other video, we used the Myers-Briggs personality profiles as ways to create marketing personas. So I don't know who that person was, whatever their Myers-Briggs type is. The point of that exercise was, how do we write stories, headlines, web copy in a way that people of that personality type will respond well, that they'll relate to it. So the data shows that a lot of bookkeepers and accountants are ISTJs, so an SJ type. Our marketing shorthand for an SJ type is a methodical. And these are people that want the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and they read the fine print, they read instruction manuals. Right now, your business owners may not, your clients may not be that type. They may be more of an NT, what we'd call a competitive. And it's just like, no, I just want the bullets. Let's just get this done. Are you good? You're good? All right. That's all I need to know.
Yeah. And what I got out of the last time that we talked about those types of things is that, a lot of times we just speak to our own personality type when we write our own things, and not knowing that there's others that are out there that might pick up on something. And that's really what that boils down to, is making sure that you're including those other personality types in your marketing content, so that they are attracted to something that maybe you can offer. And
the biggest mistake you can make is to assume that all of your clients and potential clients think the way you do. It's sort of, it's like the person that said they don't like stories and don't believe in them. Those are probably not the words that they used, but the fact that the rest of us do says maybe you should tell us a story. Right? We like hearing stories.
Well, and I would add in here too, somebody said, if they know I've done what they need done successfully before, they trust me more. And I think that's part of it, sharing, that you helped the client overcome this, or you helped a client overcome that, or, I had a client who was so upset and worried because his inventory was such a mess and blah, blah, blah. And, by the time we were finished, he was able to sleep better at night. And that was a huge relief off his shoulders or something, so sharing that story illustrates, our competency and our experience and expertise without just saying, I'm an expert in inventory or whatever it is. So sharing those problems that we've solved and the benefits that we provided for the clients. And I think that's great. Plus, I think it's easier for us to talk about it in the form of a story, so I think this has just been great. I think it's a very timely topic, very needed, and something that I know somebody just put on here. Another Michelle. I love Michelle's. I love this training out of the box for accounting type. Definitely stirred creativity inside of me. I'm excited to apply it to my marketing efforts. So I think this has been great, Dave. I love that you joined us again and shared this with us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. Glad I could do it.
And on our blog page that we'll have the replay of this later on. If you need Dave's help, he's offering a 30-minute free consultation where you can, or even maybe longer than that, right?
Well, so the 30-minute, the link that I think you're giving people is to just set up a 30-minute call with me. It doesn't even have to be 30 minutes. But one of the things we offer, and it was on that opening slide, is a 90-minute sort of a work session with anybody that's thinking about these kinds of things. So, and we can do that if you've got some care or try to figure out an ad budget, and then maybe what the highest and best use of that budget would be. Should they be in mass media or other forms of advertising? But that 30-minute call kind of leads into that, because we will ask you to do a little bit of homework before the free 90-minute one. But a lot of people get a lot of value out of it.
Wonderful. So everybody should make sure you go get those slides so you've got that information. But again, I thought this was very timely and wonderful, Dave. So thank you very much for spending your time with us. I thought it was great. I enjoyed it a lot. So thank you very much. And Everton said, excellent presentation, feeling empowered and motivated. Best training on this topic I've seen. So you've got lots of people who have absolutely loved it out there.
Got some fans, Dave.
The Dave Young Fan Club.
All right. All are welcome.
Oh, there's no initiation?
Not that we would tell you.
So again, remember, next Power Hour, we're taking off for Thanksgiving. So we'll see you in 4 weeks for the next QB Power Hour.
But we'll keep in touch on the Facebook page.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Dave, for joining us. And
put
Michelle,
me on the Facebook page. I'll jump in there too if people have questions.
All right.
Great idea.
All right.
We guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.